time. If you couldn't already tell, I like anime. I'm not obsessed with it with some people, but I'll watch it if it's on, since I'll watch anything that's animated. The only problem is that a lot of anime doesn't really appeal to me. It's either in a genre I don't care for, like fantasy or isekai, or it's very samey. Like a lot of anime set in the same settings, like how many anime are set in high school, and a lot of anime have a similar art style, have like the 4 similar art styles. But there are some anime I consider to be the cream of the crop, and since I need more video ideas, I'm deciding to make a list of the 10 greatest anime of all time, or at least in my humble opinion, which you shouldn't take as fact, as this list will be in no particular order except for number 2 and 1. So anyway, let's get on with this list. Number 10, Street Fighter, the animated movie. This one is a guilty pleasure, or at least I would say that if it wasn't pretty good. I mean, the story isn't groundbreaking, but if you just want a good action film with some likable characters, especially if you're a fan of fighting games like Street Fighter like I am, then you should probably check it out. Number 9, Dragon Ball. One of the most popular genres in anime is shonen, which is mostly aimed at young boys. Shonen meaning, around the ages of 12 and older, and are mostly about fighting, sports, or whatever teenage boys stereotypically like. And even though I kind of fit in this demographic since I like martial arts movies, but I'm not much of a fan of sports, I'm not the biggest fan of this genre, since a lot of it is very samey. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of shows in this genre I like, but it's not my favorite. Or if I had to say what I think is the best shonen anime, I would say Fullmetal Alchemist, but I only seen a few episodes, but I heard it's pretty good. Anyway, if I were asked what my favorite is, probably the original shonen that all others are inspired by, Akira Toriyama's magnum opus, the one and only Dragon Ball. Now you probably are wondering why I didn't pick its more popular sequel, Dragon Ball Z. But, well, first off, not only do I not make a distinction between them, as I consider them the same series, but I also find that writing in early Dragon Ball to be a lot better, since they could focus on the characters and comedy, which is what I think makes Dragon Ball shine. I mean, the fights are cool, but the core of Dragon Ball is its comedy. Toriyama said it himself, that he's more of a comedy writer, and Dragon Ball is really funny at times. Even the more serious Z has its humor. Anyway, I guess I will get to number 8. Macross, or Robotech as it was called in the States. Now, if there's one thing that you think of when you think anime, it's mecha. And it's one of my favorites. What's not to love? Giant robots are awesome, and nobody makes cooler robots, giant or otherwise, than Japan. I mean, other than the Terminator, because that's literally a robot skeleton. How cool is that? Anyway, a good thing for us lovers of giant robots is that there are plenty of anime with giant buckets of bolts, from Gundam to the Big O to classics like Giant Robo to the gigantic media franchise that is Neon Genesis Evangelion. But my favorite is Macross, mostly because it's kind of cool that their robots can transform into planes, kind of like that one toy line that keeps getting crappy movies because the studio won't let it die already. Anyway, there is also an epic story about war and whatever, but I mostly like it for the big boy bots. Anyway, on to number 7. Lupin the Third. Now this is an oldie, but a goodie. Starting life as a manga created by a fine man who called himself Monkey Punch in 1967, it was later made into an anime in 1970, which still airs to this day. Lupin the Third is about one Arsène Lupin III, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, the grandson of Arsène Lupin, the famous gentleman thief, from Marcel Lubenic's novels, and his partners in crime are Jurgen, an expert marksman, Goemon, a master swordsman, and Fujiko Mine, the femme fatale and would-be lover of Lupin. Together they pull off heists, being chased by the ever-goofy officer Koichi Zenigati, who is on a mission to lock up Lupin, even if it means to travel the globe for him. The series lives and dies by its cast, and luckily it has one of the best casts in anime, with the 5 leads being some of the most iconic in anime, which makes up for the lack of an overarching plot, since most stories are episodic in nature and you can jump in at any time, and the stories can also vary in tone, some being silly, others adventurous, some dark and gritty. It's like the Batman of Japan, or James Bond, in that sense, as it can work in almost any tone. It is also a huge franchise in Japan, with movies, TV specials, video games, and more, with a cult following in the West. Definitely worth your time. Number 6. Astro Boy. If you couldn't tell, a lot of my favorite anime are old. I don't know why, I just like the old stuff. And nowhere is that felt more than my love for the godfather of all anime, Astro Boy. Izumi Tezuka's Mighty Atom has been loved by millions since 1952, and there has been plenty of anime about the little robot boy from the 60s to the 80s. There was even a CG movie by the studio that made TMNT before closing its doors, but my favorite version is the 2003 anime, as to me it has the most heart, as it captures the whimsical quality of the manga. It also can get pretty philosophical about the meaning, with themes such as the meaning of life, what does it mean to be human, death, and the horrors of war. It even made me feel something at the end, when Astro Boy was begging humans and robots to stop their pointless war and live in peace. I still get a little choked up thinking about this show, as it went above and beyond what was expected of a reboot of one of the most beloved anime ever created. Number 5. I don't know if you've heard of this anime. It's pretty obscure. It's called My Hero Academia. It takes the tropes of shonen manga and mixes it with the tropes of American superhero comics. And even though I would consider myself a fan of this show, I would say there is a show that handles this idea much better, and it's called One Punch Man. It started as a webcomic by some guy called One. It was popular enough to get published in a magazine redrawn by a pro artist, which led it to be adapted into an anime. As the name suggests, it's about a guy who can defeat anyone with one punch, which you may say sounds boring, and you would be right, but the comedy comes from the fact that the main character is bored with life and wishes to fight someone of his level. This show is extremely funny, but isn't afraid to get serious when it needs to be. The perfect example is near the end of the first season. The villain, known as Deep Sea King, is shown to be a serious threat to most of the top heroes, so the drama is watching the struggle the other heroes have in trying to survive before the protagonist Saitama arrives to save the day. I won't spoil it. Let's just say it ends in a very hilarious way. The first season also has some amazing animation by the studio Madhouse that makes the fight scenes exhilarating and adds to the comedy. You should definitely check it out. Number 4. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. You know how I said Dragon Ball was my favorite shonen anime? Well, I have to make an exception for JoJo. It's basically the progressive rock of the genre, taking all the tropes from shonen and pushing the limits of what is expected of its contemporaries. Hirohiko Araki's masterpiece has been a giant of the industry since 1987, even doing partnerships with Gucci twice. Despite this, it didn't really have an anime except for a straight-to-video miniseries, or OVA, based on the third and most iconic part, Stardust Crusaders, and a movie based off the first part, Phantom Blood, that has been lost. But all that changed in 2012 when David Productions, yes, that's its real name, made a full anime series which has caused its popularity to skyrocket in the West. As the name suggests, it's quite bizarre, like Jack the Ripper coming out of a horse to fight the protagonist Bizarre, and that just in part 1. It gets weirder in every part, which has shown in how many memes are made of the series, with multiple subreddits dedicated to JoJo memes. It's kind of like the creator is putting everything he loves into it, which he obviously is with the amount of musical references there are, as it is one of the most creative series of all time, let alone anime. The only problem is that it takes a long time for seasons to come out. Like, when is part 6 coming out? Number 3. Mob Psycho 100. Do you wish One Punch Man had more focus on the plot? Well, buddy, you are in luck. Let me introduce you to Mob Psycho 100, the psychic epic by One Yes, same one who gave you One Punch Man. Now, you are probably wondering what makes this different from One Punch Man. Well, besides Eric Trump tweeting about how Google is brainwashing you by having this show be the first thing that pops up instead of a large group of people, seriously, look it up, it's worth the laugh. This series has a lot more heart to it than its older brother, as it's all about the emotional state of the main character Mob, as he's one of the most powerful psychics in the world. And if he gets too emotional, the world can be put in danger. Mob is also a lot more relatable than Saitama, since he is just a kid, and despite his amazing powers, he chooses to live a normal life, and has to deal with school, managing his emotions, and his crippling self-doubt, which anyone can relate to. Besides Mob, the supporting cast is incredible. Incredibly likable, like the girl who's obsessed with aliens or the Body Improvement Club, a group of jocks who are loyal to the end and treat Mob like a brother. Their leader has one of the standout moments in Season 2, but the fan favorite is Reagan, a con man who claims to be a spirit detective but doesn't see ghosts and uses simple tricks to fool people. He is also Mob's mentor and boss, and their friendship is the focal point of the story, which leads to some heartwarming and heartbreaking moments. My best friend has been telling me to watch it for years, and I finally did, like a month ago. And it is already a modern classic in my eyes, definitely not one to be missed. Yes, no. Number 2. Fooly Cooly. If you think JoJo was bizarre, you have not seen nothing yet. Let me introduce you to Fooly Cooly, or FLCL for short. It is what I can only describe as a surrealist, comedic, sci-fi fever dream that gives off vibes of the last days of summer, or at least that is what it reminds me of. If you want to know what it's about, it's a long story, but all you really need to know is that it's about some 12-year-old kid called Naito, or Takun, as he's called by his older brother's girlfriend, whose life is interrupted by an insane pink-haired woman on a Vespa who goes by Horiko, who later becomes his maid, and that's all you need to know. Trust me, the less you know, the better, as you're in for quite a surprise in this surreal coming-of-age story. This anime has what I consider the greatest soundtrack in anime, as its music was done by Japanese rock band The Pillows, with its punk sound helping to set the prepubescent angsty vibes that make the story feel real. There's also a manga, a few light novels that explain the story in more detail, and 2 sequels, Fully Coolly Progressive and Alternative. Both have mixed reactions by fans who feel they don't capture the energy of the original. I haven't seen them yet, but I'm just glad that there is more of this.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Nothing really special ever happens here. In this place. School sucks. My dad's a weirdo. And there's my brother's girlfriend. I don't even know what to say about her. Anyway, life was pretty slow. Until she came along. Next thing I knew, I had things coming out of my head.
It's weird, not normal, these horns sticking out.
And I had a robot living in my house. And well, a bunch of other weird stuff.
You're the one who caused all this!
I don't care!
But that alien girl, she's kind of cool, I guess.
Don't lie, you like her.
Whatever. It's really not that big a deal.
Do you find this difficult to understand?
Anyway, before we go to numero uno, we have a few honorable mentions. In my number one favorite anime is Boku no Pico. Psych! Like I'm ever going to be willingly subjecting myself to that degenerate crap. Anyway, the real number one is an anime I knew was going to be my favorite since I saw it for the first time a few years ago.
I think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2.
Cowboy Bebop. Now, if there is an anime that I would consider a contender for my favorite TV show of all time, along the likes of The Simpsons, Animaniacs, Batman the Animated Series, and Futurama, it's this one. Everything about this one is just perfect, from the characters, the setting, the plot, and the music. Oh god, the music is so good. Besides Fooly Cooly, this anime has what I think is the best soundtrack out of any anime, with its smooth jazz that adds to the melancholic vibes of the show. It's got everything I love about anime in it. Great animation, fight scenes, humor, spaceships, robots, emotional depth, and a voice cast that many say are better than the original Japanese. If you want to know what it's about, it's basically Lupin the Third in space, but there's so much more to it than that. I really can't recommend it enough. You really need to see it. Anyway, that's my list, and if you have a problem with any of the rankings, then too bad. It's my list. I can do what I want. The end!
A wise man once said, knowledge is power. The trick is making sure it gets passed to the next generation.
I'm gonna teach you how to use that power of yours so you can help us.
Well, how come?
When a master takes on someone who's ready to learn,
Excuse me, King Kai. I'd like to train under you if you'll accept me.
amazing things happen.
I can't believe it. Well done, Goku.
Teaching techniques vary.
Piccolo, can you help me out here, please?
There will be no help.
But if everybody works hard, it pays off.
Your preparation has been excellent. I have full confidence in you.
Right.
There's nothing like the day when a teacher can see their students succeed.
Really, Goku is a man with unfathomable power.
Another thank God. Lord Severance you became. I'm proud of you.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste. I get lonely sitting here watching the world go by. It'd be nice to have somebody to talk to.
Wonder Woman calling Super Friend.
A friend, patriot, teammate.
I think it's best to team up.
I say we go for it.
Yes.
Show me a superhero worth their salt.
Hang on, guys. I'm gonna save you no matter what it takes.
I'll show you a support network of friends standing behind them.
United, we're invincible!
Good going, Johnny.
Whether it's the Sailor Scouts, or the Super Friends, or the Dragon Ball heroes,
What the team?
everybody needs a helping hand.
Hang on.
Even the bad guys know a thing or two about teamwork.
Let's go!
We all get by with a little help from our friends.
And we can all be Super Friends.
Go,